24, verse 15. Vayhi hu terem kilo daber. When the servant of Abraham, Rashi identifies as Eliezer, as soon as he immediately finished his speech, V'nei Rivka yotzeit. Rivka came out. Asher Yoldo of Tuel ben Milcah. She was born to Betuel, the son of Milcah, Ashes Nachor, the wife of Nachor, Achi Avraham, who was Avram's brother. So she was Abraham's. Well, Nachor was Avram's brother, and so
great niece.
So Betuel was
his nephew.
Betuel was Avram's nephew, and Rivka was Avram's great niece. V'kadal shechma, and she had a pitcher on her shoulder, a jug on her shoulder. Vanara tovat. Oh wait, let's see what Rashi says. Nothing. Vanara tovat mara ma'od, and this girl, Rebecca, was extremely beautiful. Betuah, she was a virgin. Hello, Mordechai. Hello, Aviva. The ish lo yeda'ah, no man had known her. V'ateret ha'ena v'atimalei kadav, and she went down. Good afternoon. And she went down to the well or to the spring, and she filled her jug and went up. Everything okay? Baruch Hashem. So this is a strange Rashi. Rashi says Betulah, that she was a virgin. Rashi says mimakom betulim, meaning to say, I don't want to be too explicit, but it means to say that she was a virgin in two directions. So first it says she was a virgin. She says mimakom betulim, the normal way in which a person understands to be a virgin. And then Rashi says, and no man had known her, because it says she was a virgin. Why then again does it have to say no man had known her, to tell us this idea, Shalo Kedarka, that even in the other direction, she was also a virgin. Rashi says, because there were certain, the daughters of the nations, they would say, oh, we're a virgin, but they would abandon themselves from a different orifice. So it testifies of Rebecca that she was innocent, or queen of all things. And the servant ran to greet her. Vayomer, and he said, Hagmi'ini na ma'at mikadech. He says, Hagmi'ini na ma'at mayim mikadech. He says, give me a little bit of water from your jug. What does Rashi say this is saying? Vayoretz ha'evel likrata, v'fisha ra'ah, sha'alu mayim likrasa. He knew that she was special. Why did he run towards her? He saw she was special. You have the place? He saw that she was special because the waters came up towards her. Hello, Josh. Who?
He's also Jewish.
Oh, wow. Shut the door behind you. So you're here to join us for study? Of course. What's your first name? Dylan. Okay, here's a Chumash, and Josh. Jerry, please ask your questions.
Yes. When it says, and the servant ran toward her, is the servant Eliezer?
Yeah, well, so that's a very interesting point. Here, Dylan, you could sit right there if you want. It's a very interesting point. that Rashi had what? Well, either way, but there's another book over there, so you can take that. So we're in chapter 24, verse 16. So the servant, Rashi identifies the servant with Eliezer based upon other chapters in the Tanakh, in the Torah, but the text in this chapter does not explicitly call him Eliezer. So that's a very, you see, Jerry, you read it very carefully. Very good for you.
So, Eliezer then is using one of his underlings to do the introduction to.
No. He's not using it on the. First of all, I think what page are we on? We'll tell Josh.
123.
Page 123. So no, Ellie, it's just here. It's called, the whole thing is called the servant of Abraham, but it doesn't identify him by name. It just keeps calling him the servant. It's your theory is interesting that the servant didn't go himself directly, but I don't know that that's really the case, because Abraham says at the beginning of the chapter that he says to his servant, the elder of the house, the one who's in charge of everything. So it's very clearly not an underling who is doing this task. It was very clearly the one in charge. It's just for whatever reason, the text does not directly call him Eliezer.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you for your very precise reading. Very nice. Okay, so we're just continuing right here, moving right along. So the servant runs to greet her because he saw that the water came up to her. And the servant says in verse 17, chapter 24, verse 17, Vayomer hagmi'ini na ma'amai. He said, let me sip a little bit of water. Rashi says the word hagmi'ini, mashon gmiyah. So it's a expression of sipping. In French, it means humir, to suck in. Okay, so he asked her, can I have a little bit of water from your jug? Verse 18. Vatomer, and she said, Shetei Adoni, drink, my master, Vatimaher, Vatored Kadal Yadav Tashkeo. And she quickly lowered the jug from her hands and she gave him to drink. Rashi says, Me'al Shechma, she lowered the jug from her shoulder. Vatachawa Ashkoto, and then when she finished giving him to drink, Vatomer, and she said, Gam Ligmalecha Eshav, also for your camel, I will draw water. Adim kilulishtot. She doesn't say at the outset how much the camel could drink. She says until the camel is completed to be drinking. We see from here that she was completely generous. Anybody know how much camels drink? They drink a lot, I assume. Rabbi Yosef, you must know, or Deborah.
I must have known at one point, but they had a journey of about 3 days, and it was 10 camels. So
yeah, they have a hump to store the water, but it's some incredibly great amount that they could drink. And she's saying, I'm going to feed your camels. I'm going to give your cattle water to drink until they finish drinking. Rashi says, Adam kilu l'shtotari means, the word im means until that they have finished. Im kilu, Rashi says, day safkun, as though they've had enough. Shazui gemar shtiatan. This is the conclusion of their drinking. Kesheshatu de sipukan, when they've drunk enough.
And she also doesn't know how long they journeyed. Sorry.
Doesn't know. She's giving them an unending amount.
20 to 30 gallons at a time.
20 to 30 gallons.
Yeah, at a time, and one drinking.
And do you know how many camels he had? 10 camels, it says at the beginning. It says he took 10 camels with him, right? That's what it says in the verse. He took 10 camels. So let's say she has to imagine 30 camels times 10. That's 300 gallons of water she's going to give. 300 gallons of water from a well is an incredibly large amount. It goes well beyond the expectation of hospitality. And it wasn't that she just said, oh yeah, go help yourself from my well. She went to fill it up herself and kept drawing it and bringing it to them, drawing it and bringing it to them. This shows an incredible spirit of generosity.
And this was a 3-year-old girl.
Well, we have not yet come to that Rashi, but we'll see what that Rashi says. We'll see what that Rashi says. We've not yet come to that Rashi.
At the bottom of the page in this book.
What does he say?
It can be inferred from her conduct, the fact that she was holding not a rock, that she was approximately 11 or 12.
So she was a little bit older. That's what Rabbi Steinsaltz is arguing. He's not accepting the approach that says on the basis of Rashi's approach was that on the basis of Midrash that she was 3, but he says she was older. Okay. Now, Dylan, would you like a drink?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that cup dirty.
Oh, we'll have to get you a new cup.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it's dirty, so.
That's not very in the spirit of Rivka and Abraham to give you a dirty cup. But Dylan says he doesn't want. But if you wanted water, we give you and your camels as much as you wanted.
If you have a pen, thank you.
So then the verse says that Vatar Vatachawashkoto, she finished, we read that verse. Vatamaher, and she aried, Vatar Kadala Shoket, and she emptied her jug into the trough. Vataretz Oda Be'er, and she ran to the well again, Lashov, to draw water. Vatishav Kol Malav, and she kept drawing water for all its camels. Rashi says the word Vatar means an expression of nefitza, emptying out. He says this is a common word in the Mishnah. Hama'areh mikli al kli, one who empties from one vessel to another. It's an avodah zarah. V'mikra yesh lo domeh. There are similar words in the Bible. Al ta'ar nafshi, do not cast out my soul. From Psalms. Asher ha'ara la'maves nafsho. His soul had been cast out to death. From Isaiah. Hashoket is the trough. Rashi says this is an even chalula. It was a hollow stone. Sheshotim ba'hag malim, and that's where the camels drink, from which the camels drink. Okay, so now verse 21. Va'ish mishta'ela, the man was astonished at her because she seemed to be doing exactly what he wanted. So the man was completely astonished. Well, that's the question. You mean who is the servant? It's a servant. The servant was astonished. Well, Rashi says the servant was Eliezer, but the text says the text keeps calling him anything but Eliezer. Calls him the servant and the man. He was astonished. Macharish ladat. He was
Dumbfounded.
Hashem darko imo. He was dumbfounded. Hashem seemed to be giving him tremendous success with his path. So, okay. Rashi says, Mishta'e lashon shiyah. It's an expression of bewilderment. Kemo sha'u arim tisha'esh mama. A city Chayei desolate. Mishta'e was astonished. Mishtomein, amazed. Mitbahel, taken aback. Al sharad varo karov atziach. He saw he was successful. V'eino yodea, he didn't know. Imi mishpechat Avram he imlav. Even though she did what he said, he still wasn't completely certain that she was from Abraham's path or not. He wasn't certain. And then Rashi goes into the grammar, which we'll leave. Mishta'ewa, Rashi says, Mishtomei mo'eh. He was amazed at her. Okay. So, Vayhi kasher kilu agmalim l'shtot. It was when the camels completed drinking. Vayikacha ish. By the way, I went to a well, not in Aram Naraim, not in Haran, but I went to Moshe's well in Saudi Arabia. And it's when you see a well, there's like nothing for all the way around, and then there's this well. So I went to Moshe's well in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't look like that trip is going to happen again anytime soon, but bear in mind. So it was when the camels finished drinking. A man took a golden ring, beka mishkalo. Its weight was a beka, ushneitz midim al and two bracelets, asarazav mishkalam, and their weight was 10. Their weight was 10. Let's see what Rashi says here. Let's see what Rashi says. Becca, why is he giving her? Now the text is going to, Rashi is going to point out that he didn't yet ask who her family was. He started giving her jewelry right away. It was when the camels finished drinking and the man took the ring. Rashi says, Becca or Mishko, its weight was a Becca. Rashi says, why is he giving her something that weighs a shekel? A Becca, Mishkalo. Rashi says this is an illusion. Remez l'mishkalei Yisrael. It's an allusion to the shkalim of Israel that everybody would have to give a half shekel to the temple. Becca l'golgolas, a becca for every head. So a becca is the half the weight of a shekel. That's what Rashi is telling us. And the children of Israel in Shemos, in Sefer Shemos, are told to give in Parshas Kisisa a half shekel. That's called a becca. So, okay, and then he has to give her shnei tzmidim. He gave her two bracelets. Remez l'shnei luchot mitzumadot. This is an allusion. Hello, Reb David. This is an allusion to the two pair tablets of the covenant. Meaning to say that when Moshe brought down the tablets, they were broken into two. So he's giving her the Becca, which is a reference to the idea that that her descendants were going to give a half shekel, and the two bracelets to the illusion that Moshe was going to bring down the tablets. Chapter 24, verse 23. And only afterwards does he say to her, Vayomer bat miat. He says, who are you? Agidin ali. Please testify to me. Hayesh beit avich makom lanu lalin. Is there room for us to sleep? Who's us? Who is he referring to? He's just there by himself, I thought.
Probably.
Men.
It's a long journey, and it was an important one. So he probably had a whole retinue of servants that helped him in this journey.
He must have. I don't think you could take care of 10 camels by yourself. It's probably very hard.
Right.
And he gave the nose ring and the bracelets before he really knew who she was or what.
That's what Rashi's going to point out later on, that he gave it before he knew she was.
So was that partially maybe an appreciation or, because of the
For
water?
the water.
Or was it also because he wanted to kind of solidify since maybe he wanted her to be Yitzhak's wife?
He wanted to get in on their good side.
Right.
It's a very good point. I don't have a good answer, but your answers are good. But I skipped to Rashi. He also gave her the two bracelets weighed 10 gold shkolim. Rashi says, Remez la'aseret hadibrot shebehen. This is an allusion to the 10 commandments. Well, this has always been strange. What's he trying to say to her? What's he trying to, hold on, I'm gonna take with my AirPods. I tell you this, in case somehow the Zoom shuts off. Sometimes I take them off, it shuts off. So if that's the case, come right back on. So, oh, no, it's still good. Okay, so why do we have to say, it seems like, why is he hinting to her to the 10 Commandments, hinting to her to the 2 tablets, hinting to this idea of the half shekel? It seems a bit of a stretch. I think what he was trying to tell her is that she, even though she sees herself as being in the backwater of Aram Narayan, between the 2 rivers, still nevertheless, she's destined for greatness. And that's the idea, that there's the 10 Commandments, she's destined for greatness. So the concept is, you might think you're small, you're living in a place nobody's heard of you, you're a small town. No, you're going to be the person who's the mother of all the Jews for all of eternity. You are going to be the matriarch. Every day, people are going to say your names for the rest of their lives. People are going to be visiting your tomb and recognizing your greatness. So you're not anybody insignificant. You are destined for an eternal life. That's what he says to her. So verse 23, he says to her, Vayomer, he says to her, Bat miat. So he says to her, whose daughter are you? Oh yeah, so we said this first. What does Rashi say? As Aviva pointed out, first he gave her the jewelry, and then he asked her, Sha'Allah, he asked her, he was convinced that the merits of Abraham, that he would be successful. I just want to say this, you hear so much confidence in Israel from the soldiers when they go out to battle. That's what this jogged my mind. One of the things I was thinking of is, let me ask you this question. You ever hear the expression, Am Yisrael Chai?
Yes.
Okay. Where does that expression come from? Am Yisrael Chai, who doesn't know that? Probably even the prisoners have written to you with that phrase, right? Everybody knows this expression. Even people cut off from society. Am Yisrael Chai. It's not in the Bible. You ever think about this, Rabbi Yosef? It's not in the Talmud. It's not in the medieval commentaries. I looked on Google last night. The earliest possible source that some people want to suggest, which is not really documented as far as I can tell, is after the rabbi came to the people being liberated from Bergen-Belsen, he said, Jews, you're free, Am Yisrael Chai. But it's a little bit of a stretch that why was he speaking to them in Hebrew? 99% of them spoke Yiddish. So then it's also possible there's a source that Golda Meir went to Russia in 1948, and they say she was greeted with the phrase Am Yisrael Chai. So the earliest, but even then it was just not mainstream phrase, certainly. So it became mainstream as part of the Soviet Jewry movement that Jacob Birnbaum, who died in absolute poverty, who was one of the geniuses behind the Soviet Jewry movement, and the Jewish community really forgot about him after he helped so many Jews escape the Iron Curtain. He asked Shlomo Carlebach to write a song to these words. And if you have the book by Rabbi Weiss called Open Up the Iron Door, in there's a picture of where Shlomo Carlebach was singing the song Am Yisrael Chai for the first time. That tune that Shlomo Carlebach made for Am Yisrael Chai made the song universal in the Jewish community. And now this phrase, Am Yisrael Chai, is ubiquitous from the most Reformed to the most Haredi. And it just tells you that this powerful phrase, which is, it's almost prophetic, because it's not in the traditional canon of Jewish sources, has become almost the anthem of the Jewish people. And I find it very, very moving. This idea that Am Yisrael Chai has become the anthem. But I haven't found a real source for when this phrase first began to be used for the first
So
time.
Rabbi Yehuda Leva Cohen Maimon was
So-
one of the
You're trying to say,
signers of the Declaration of
oh wait, hold on,
Independence.
Rabbi Yosef was trying to say something. Rabbi Yosef, I cut you off and then, yeah, Rabbi Yosef, what were you saying?
Rabbi Maimon, who was the only one who wrote Basad next to his signature on the Declaration of Independence. He
Yeah,
wrote a book called Sarei Me'ah, and he wrote a story about Rabbi Yonatan Eibshitz, who wrote a parchment that the phrase Am Yisrael Chai Lo Me'ad can be read 45,760 times in all different directions.
wait, you have a reference to Rabbi Maimon saying that Rabbi Yona's son Eibshitz said this?
Yes, but he added Lo Me'ad.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah, of course.
That's very powerful. Now, Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, we know about him that he was a man who was accused of being a Sabbatian. Is a very controversial Emden Eibshitz controversy. Okay, so very, very powerful. All right, let's pray now. Let's dive in now. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jerry. You were trying to say, I cut off Josh. First
Yeah.
Josh and then Jerry. Yes, Josh.
I also post on my Instagram.
Am Yisrael. Yeah. Yeah, it's such a
The day
ubiquitous.
after the attack.
Right.
The day after the attack.
Very nice. Right. Yes, and Jerry, what were you going to say?
What was the problem with Rabbi Eibshitz?
Oh, so there's something called the Emden Eibshitz controversy that Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, who was maybe, I think, 2 generations after Shabtai Tzvi, you can look up his exact dates. I think he died, somebody else can look it up for me, but if I had to guess, he died in the 18th century. I don't remember exactly. And he was probably the leading rabbi of the generation. And there was another rabbi who was possibly not as big a rabbi as him, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, who's a tremendous scholar. And Rabbi Yaakov Emden accused Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz of being a secret follower of Shabtai Tzvi. And the scholars seem to think that Rabbi Yaakov Emden really did have a point. So that became known as the Emden Eibshitz controversy. So that became known as the Emden Eibshitz controversy. To this day, everybody studies Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz and people study Rabbi Yaakov Emden, but at the time it was a tremendous, as you can imagine, a tremendous controversy, which caused all the other controversies to pale in comparison.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Let's start with Tehillim, and then after Tehillim we'll have a mincha. Okay.